it was kind of a technological flurry. I welcome again to the Sadhvi Sangha online Vaishnavi community. Today we are very honored again to have Urmila Devi Dasi with us. She has been in Krishna consciousness since 1973. She took before that, but she took initiation from Srila Prabhupada in 1973. Urmila Prabhu is also really well known in the field of education. She's been a teacher for 27 years and she has 19 years of experience in school management. She's also the chair of the Shastric Advisory Council and an associate editor for Back to Godhead magazine. She has written a lot of books. She's well known for her Dr. Best Learn to Read series with 83 books of literacy, of a literacy program. She has, a few years ago, she wrote the book Essence Seekers that deals with the development of devotion, and she uses examples and she uses metaphorically from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. We're looking forward to a new book on career dharma. I think it comes out next year, or not this year, but next year. And then there's also a book, Krishna Meditations, due this year, end of this year, hopefully. And that's about how we can see Krishna in our everyday lives. So we're very happy to have you here again, Prabhu, and we'll look forward to what you're having to say to us about the stages of meditation, because I think especially in this time, but in every day, we need to know what meditation looks like in its different forms and stages so that we can actually know how do we progress. That it's not just a one and done type of deal. So I give over to you now, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for inviting me and letting me join. So we know that the whole system of Bhakti Yoga is to always remember Krishna and never forget him. That's the whole thing. Rupa Goswami says that is the rule, and all the other rules are subordinate to that rule. The whole essence of Bhakti Yoga is to think about Krishna. Right? Krishna tells Arjuna in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, always think of me with love. If you can't do that, then practice thinking of me. If you can't do that, then just do some work. Just be busy in some sort of work for me. So this is our idea, that we always want to be absorbed in Krishna. Krishna explains in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that whatever we think about is what we're going to become. It's where we're going to go. And this morning I was listening to a wonderful discussion by Srila Prabhupada from Mayapur Dham in 1975, where he was saying that on the ultimate issue, however we want to serve Krishna as a desire tree, the desire trees are trees, it's souls who desire to serve Krishna as a tree. However we want to serve Krishna as a tree, as a cowherd boyfriend, as a lover, as in a parental mood, however we want to serve Krishna, that's what we're going to achieve. So our whole idea of everything we're doing, our chanting our japa, our chanting our gayatris, our worshiping the deities, our reading of the shastras, our cleaning of the temple, our going to our work, our washing the dishes, our taking care of children, our serving a husband, taking care of our parents, our siblings, driving a car, anything that we do is meant to have us be in a stage of remembrance of Krishna. Mam anusmaram yujicha, think of me while you fight, Krishna says to Arjuna. So whatever we're doing. Now, I'm sure we've all found, though, that that's an easy thing to say. It's an easy thing to preach. But how do we do that? Now, it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas explain that, generally speaking, there are progressive stages of entering deeper and deeper into meditating on Krishna and thinking of Krishna. Now, that makes sense because in sadhana bhakti, there are various stages of advancing in sadhana bhakti in general. And I'm sure most of you are familiar with the stages of Anushraddha, Sadhusanga, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti, Nishta, Ruchi, Ashakti, Bhava, and Prema that Rupa Goswami lists. It's explained in Madhurya Kadambini. Srila Prabhupada refers to it all over his books. It's alluded to in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. And I'm sure we've also heard of the stages of where there's offensive chanting, clearing stage of chanting, and pure chanting. We've also probably heard about the stage where we think God is only in a temple and we don't know how to treat anybody, to we love God, we're friends with the devotees, we preach to the innocent, and we avoid the atheists, and the final stage, we see God everywhere and in everyone. So we've heard these different stages of progressing in devotional service, but there are also stages of progressing in devotional service in terms of how we're meditating on Krishna. So this explanation of meditation on Krishna is given by Srila Prabhupada in his purport to the Nectar of Instruction, text 8, where our Srila Prabhupada is quoting directly from his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Srila Prabhupada also alludes to these meditation stages throughout his purports and lectures in various places. They are also discussed by Jiva Goswami, and they are quoted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur and explained in different ways. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains these stages in one way in Harinam Chintamani, in another way in Jaiva Dharma, in another way in his commentary on Raghunath Das Goswami's Sri Manashiksha, text 11, which we published the whole Manashiksha a few years ago. And so he's explaining the same stages, the same words in different ways. Srila Prabhupada also explains them in different ways in different places. And some of these stages correspond to some extent to the stages of meditation in Astanga Yoga. Now, because there's so many different ways of explaining these stages, the same words, but they're explained in different ways. So what we're going to do is first look at a very overall kind of generic understanding. And then I'm going to be showing a PowerPoint for that, which some of you may have seen this. It's part of the Sri Manashiksha presentation on text 11. So that's just an overall generic explanation. Then we're going to look at 3 documents, which you have links for in the chat. If you joined late, just ask the organizers to send that to you. And we're going to see some of the nuances. I wasn't able in even 3 documents to capture all of the nuances, but I think it will give you an idea for further research. And I personally just find this fascinating because our idea of meditating on Krishna is not mechanical. Like in Astanga Yoga, it's mechanical. You breathe in a certain way, you sit in a certain way, and if you're not polluting your life with bad things and you're living rightly, the body as a machine, and the subtle body as a machine, is designed with certain kinds of breathing and posture to put the consciousness into a particular state. And in that state, you gradually increase your ability to meditate. And then you have the jnanis who go into meditation by working with thoughts and philosophy. And these are becoming very popular in 2020. So there's a lot of groups that are preaching some variety, teaching some variety of Astanga Yoga meditation. There's so many spiritual and not even spiritual, even psychological, medical organizations and systems that are basically teaching Jnana Yoga, how to deal with thoughts, how to deal with philosophy, how to understand the world in such a way that you go into a state of meditation. And then Karma Yoga is how to work in a detached way that puts you into a state of peace and meditation. Right? and where Krishna says, Twajajante kaledram, shantim twajajante kaledram. There's peace at the end of giving up the fruits of your work. But bhakti yoga meditation is very different, because bhakti yoga meditation is the most natural and easy kind of meditation you could possibly do. And this is explained very nicely. Srila Prabhupada gave a lecture in Sanand, India on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, where Krishna says, Maya Shaktam Manaparta, always think of me with a Shakti, with attachment. We all have the experience that we will naturally meditate on whatever we're attached to or whomever we're attached to. If we're attached to a husband, we'll think about our husband. If we're attached to a child, we'll think about our child. If we're attached to a phone, to a car, to a building, we'll think about that. If we're attached to our job, we'll think about that. Whatever we have some attachment to, we'll naturally be absorbed in it. And we can be absorbed so much in our objects of attachment that we lose awareness even of what's going on around us. We can be thinking so much of our work, whatever. We often tend to be absorbed in the objects of our attachment when we have some anxiety about losing them, which is interesting. So if we're thinking that we might lose our job, or our child doesn't love us anymore, our husband doesn't love us anymore, our car is broken, it may not work anymore, we tend to go into a deeper state of meditation than just in normal life. But anyway, we know how to do that. And the things we will meditate on, or the people we meditate on, are those people or things, or it could be animals, that we feel are necessary for our survival and our happiness. So the essence of bhakti is realizing that all of our lovable objects and persons are attractive to us because they're part of Krishna. Right? The gopis say this to Krishna when he tells them to go home. They say, our husbands, our children, our home, they're all attractive because they're part of you. So it's essential to keep these basic points in mind as we go through the stages, because we're not at all, in any way, shape, or form, speaking about mechanical stages. We're not speaking about mechanical stages. We're speaking about stages of developing attachment. And we can certainly compare this again, it's similar to how we develop material attachment. I may meet somebody or get a new job or get a new car or a new phone, and at first I'm not so attached, and gradually that attachment can deepen as I become more and more feeling that I'm very dependent on this object of my attachment. All right, let's go to before I do this, I know there's a way to make sure. Just give me a second here. So we made to make sure that nobody can annotate. I think it's here. I thought it was on screen share, but I don't see it. Advanced. Somehow I'm not seeing that option, so hopefully nobody will do it. Okay, we'll go to here. Okay, so this is the first stage of meditation called Shravana Dasa. Shravana Dasa is defined as, Shravana Dasa is defined as constant hearing of Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, and teachings. We could think of this as a very introductory kind of meditation. A very introductory kind of meditation. So This is sort of the contemplation stage. Let's say you're hearing about the new computer, or you're hearing about this, attractive person you might want to marry, or you're hearing about some job that you might want to take, and you're starting to think about it. Wow, that sounds like a really nice place to live, and the job sounds really interesting. You're talking to people about the job, you're starting to think about it, or someone says, well, there's this really nice guy that just moved in here and he's looking for a wife, and he's good looking and he's smart, and you're hearing about him and you talk to other people about him and you start kind of turning it over in your mind, right? So this is the stage of hearing. So the same way, again, we do with something in this world. We start hearing about Krishna. We start hearing from the Shastras. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? What does he say in the Bhagavatam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? And then we're hearing classes by the devotees. We're reading and the devotees are talking about Krishna. This morning at our local temple, devotee was giving this Bhagavatam class about how wonderful Krishna's exciting adventures are. And he was saying how entrancing they are, and exciting and absorbing. And so we're hearing classes like that from the devotees. We're reading the commentaries of the acharyas. We're reading and as we're reading and we're hearing, and we're starting to really kind of think about what we hear. And wow, that's really interesting. I'd love to think about Krishna. Yeah. Or maybe Balaram, or maybe Varaha, or Nrsimha, or Ramchandra, or Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. And we're hearing and we're developing these emotional attachments. We're really starting to develop those emotional attachments. Now, this hearing develops to the next stage of meditation. And we want to mention again, this is not just hearing mechanically. It's not just like you're trying to drive someplace and someone gives you directions and okay, just do that. It's some hearing where there's some emotional involvement, some thinking. Remember, this is a stage of meditation. So this is thinking about what you're hearing, rolling it over, maybe talking to other people about it, maybe writing other people, and so forth. Okay, then the next stage is Varnadash. This is a stage of acceptance. So now one has gotten really attached to hearing. When one is not just hearing as a discipline with some emotion and some curiosity and some wow, but one has gotten really attached to hearing. So that basically, if we're not physically hearing or physically reading, it's almost like we're still going on and reading, or we're not reading. When can I open the book again? When can I listen to a class again? When can I study again? When can I be absorbed in knowing something else about Krishna? At the end of the day, wow, I only had 3 verses today and only heard 1 class. It wasn't enough. There starts to be some real attachment. And at this point, there's some very substantial faith in Krishna and a little bit of spiritual greed. It's kind of frail and delicate. And our realization is there, but it's immature. So when we're meditating on Krishna, it's very unsystematic. We think about this thing we read, this thing and that thing. It's not systematic. And it's also being mixed with mundane things. So our impressions of Krishna are also mixed with mundane things. However, at this stage, we really feel that Krishna is there in the Shastra. We feel that Krishna is there in the discussion of the devotees. We're experiencing some presence of Krishna. And there's, as I said, the spiritual greed is very, very delicate in beginning. It's not the ultimate spiritual greed Rupa Goswami talks about. It's the beginning idea. And again, this hearing that we're attached to has become very much a part of us. Now, the third stage is called Smaranavasta, and Smarana means remembrance. So it's interesting that the first two stages, Shravana and Varana, are also considered Smarana, but on another hand, here, really what we think about as Smarana, or what we think about as, we think about meditating. In one sense, you could say it begins at this stage, although it really does begin at Shravana. Now here, Srila Prabhupada describes this stage as chanting in ecstasy. Now, generally, it's at this stage that one gets some beginning, intuitive, vague, starting to awaken sense of one's spiritual identity. And again, this lecture I was listening to this morning, Srila Prabhupada, it was in 75 in Mayapur, and Srila Prabhupada was speaking about how we will have whatever spiritual identity we want. It's our own desire to serve Krishna in a particular way, but it's not an intellectual desire. It's not like you're just saying, well, I don't know, gopis cry a lot. Cowherd boys are always playing. I'd rather be a cowherd boy. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. It's not like that. It's just a spontaneous awakening that, whoa, that's how I feel, right? It's the difference between like looking at a young, cute child and thinking, that is a young, cute child. I am an adult. I am supposed to have protective, caring feelings for children. So let me smile at this child and just feeling, aw, how are you doing today? As something spontaneous, right? Or like Rupa Goswami says, Yuvatina mitayuni yuvuncha yuvatorita manobrahmate tadvan manume ramitam tvi. Just as young boys and young girls are naturally attracted to one another. So it's not that, a young boy sees a beautiful woman and thinks, well, I'm a male, it's a female, and she's really beautiful. And so, yeah, maybe I should be attracted. It's not like that. It's just like, I'm attracted. So at the Smaranavasta, very often, not always, but very often, there is this sort of awakening of, oh, I want Krishna as my child, or I just want to serve Krishna as my master, or I want a romantic relationship with Krishna, or I like Krishna as my buddy. Now, at this third stage, one can meditate with a mentally conceived spiritual form. Now, this third stage has different parts to it, but let's look a little bit more deeply into the third stage. And for this, we're also going to reference Srimad Bhagavatam 3:28-34. We'll be referencing 3:28-34 quite a few times here. So Lord Kapila, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, in the beginning, the mind is employed in attracting the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm going to read that again. In the beginning, the mind is employed in attracting the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'll read that one more time. In the beginning, the mind is employed in attracting the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, I find, surprisingly perhaps, and interestingly, that many people in the Krishna consciousness movement seem to be very hesitant about using their mind in meditation. Now, you remember in that second stage of Varna Dasha, there was a mixing of mundane topics in your meditation. And devotees are really afraid to do that. They're afraid that, well, if I use my mind to meditate on Krishna, there's going to be some mixing of mundane topics. And the answer is yes, that's true. Still, in the beginning, the mind is used. Because what else are we going to use? We have to use what we have. We have to use where we are. We have to start from where we are. Whenever we're going to go anyplace, we have to start from the place that we're at. So the place that we're at in the beginning, for most of us, is identification with the body and mind. Therefore, we have to use the body and mind. Now, we all know how to use the body. I wash the deity's dishes and I sweep the Lord's floor, and we all know how to do that. So it's also using the mind. And what Prabhupada said is the mind is attracting the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So keep this thought there, because we're going to be developing this more. So this third stage is on the platform. All the aspects of this third stage of Smadhanavasa are on the platform of the mind. Now, this third stage has 5 subparts. So far we've had Shravanadasa, hearing, Pranadasa, where one is accepting, it's one sort of internalizing what one's hearing, one's becoming attached to what one's hearing. Then Smadhanadasa, which is remembrance on the platform of the mind, and this has 5 subparts, 5 subparts. Okay, our first subpart of the third stage is interrupted recollection. Interrupted recollection. So again, it's unsystematic. We're still in an unsystematic stage here, and there's not a connection between one pastime and another. So sometimes we're thinking about Krishna dancing on Kaliya, sometimes we're thinking about Kanya dancing on the Yatra, sometimes we're remembering Krishna's descriptions of something in the universe. I mean, we're jumping from one thing to another. And at this point, it's not really a development, although there may be some hint of our eternal relationship with Krishna. At this point, it's not really developing that relationship so much, but it's really cultivating attachment for Krishna and eagerness for perfection. That's the whole point of meditation at this stage. You know, we think about Krishna, when we think about something else, think about Krishna. Our minds are constantly interrupted when we're trying to think about Krishna. We're not systematic in our thinking about Krishna. We're not systematic in thinking about pastimes. But we're trying to cultivate this attachment to Krishna. We're trying to cultivate some real eagerness. And whenever we see a little bit of eagerness, then we work on it. All right, part 2 of the third stage is absorption. So this is when our meditation can be uninterrupted. When we sit down to think about Krishna, or we have some time we're meditating on Krishna, our mind isn't just jumping to other things all the time, or it very quickly comes back. We can think about a whole series of a pastime without jumping someplace else. You can think about the differences here, like let's say for the interrupted, you're sitting in a class, or maybe in this class, and your focus on the class keeps getting interrupted. So maybe you're listening to what I'm saying, and then you're thinking, oh my God, I gotta go to the store today before it closes. Or, oh my goodness, I didn't soak the beans yet. So you're constantly being interrupted. And then uninterrupted, you're able to hear the class, and you're just hearing the class. Or you're able to just think about a pastime, talk about a pastime, remember a pastime or something, and just let that be there without other things intruding. Psychologists call this a state of flow, a state of full engagement. And again, we all have this experience of this interrupted and uninterrupted, even in things in our daily life, right? We all have situations where we're doing something and our mind is constantly wandering away from what we're doing. And then we have situations where we're doing something and we're really just focused on what we're doing. We're not always wandering away. Okay. Third stage, part 3. Now here it becomes concentrated, because whether my mind is wandering away or my mind isn't wandering away, I may still be on a kind of a surface level. So I can be thinking about Krishna, I can be reading about Krishna, I can be listening about Krishna, and my mind jumping back and forth, or I can be there where my mind's engaged, but my mind still may be engaged, even if it's uninterrupted. I may be engaged in a surface level rather than in a deep level. Now we're going back to this 328:34, and here we're going to the verse itself before we quote it from the purport. Here where Lord Kapila says, the mind is used as a means to attract the Lord as one attracts a fish to a hook. And again, hold this concept that what we're doing with the mind here, the whole purpose of this meditation, is that our mind is supposed to be acting like a lure. So that Krishna will say, huh, what's going on here? Srila Prabhupada liked to quote Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as saying, don't try to see God, act in such a way that God will want to see you. So it may appear that this kind of meditation is trying to see God. It isn't. This kind of meditation is showing Krishna that we are interested in seeing him. We're eager to see him, and therefore to attract him to appear. So anyway, here the meditation becomes more concentrated. And again, I'm sure that we have experience of this in mundane things that we meditate. So we have this interrupted where our mind's constantly wandering, uninterrupted, we're paying attention, but it's kind of superficial. Then concentrated, we're really deeply meditating on what we're thinking about, what we're hearing, what we're reading. Okay, then we go to part 4. In part 4, Anusmriti, our meditation becomes expanded. Now, in our Krishna consciousness movement, our main times for meditation are certainly our japa, chanting japa. Those of us who chant the Gayatri mantras, chanting the Gayatri mantras. Also, you could say, if we're doing deity worship, when we're worshiping deity, when we're reading the Shastra, all of the things that we call our sadhana, right? If you're in the Hare Krishna movement, I have to do my sadhana. That means, kirtan means kirtan, japa, Gayatri, reading the Shastra, taking care of the deities. That's generally what we think of as far as our sadhana. And those are our times specifically for meditation. When I'm reading the Shastra, I'm supposed to be meditating on the philosophy of pastimes, name, form, qualities, pastimes of the Shastra. When I'm chanting japa, I should be meditating on the name, form, qualities, pastimes of the Lord, and so forth. So Anusmriti is when the concentrated meditation, because we had this concentrated meditation in part 3, that was happening during meditation time. And now that concentrated meditation is spilling over into the other parts of our lives. Now, a little note here, although we're talking about this as distinct stages, some of this may happen out of order little bits here and there. In other words, one may get a little taste of a higher stage while one is at a lower stage. And this is true with any way we talk about stages of devotion. If we think of it as a journey, let's say you're driving or walking or bicycling on a road to get someplace, sometimes there's a turn in the road where you see your destination, even though it's very far away. So the same thing happens in these stages. In other words, we may end up meditating on Krishna outside of our meditation time, even when we're 1 week in the movement. But here Anusmriti is referring to a time when really our meditation is filling our day. That it's not just like, okay, I have this meditation time, and then I have this time for work and this time for family. So this is really where it goes into our day. And again, that can happen even at a beginning stage. What Kamalasita was talking about, the Krishna Meditation book, is a book she and I have been working on the last few years, about how to meditate on Krishna, as the light of the sun and the taste of water. Nice taste of water there. In my ability, right, my intelligence, my memory. And that can be done by a very beginner. Prabhupada said the alcoholic can meditate on Krishna and the taste of his wine. So that kind of Anusmriti can go on in the beginning. But here we're talking about something that's really a spreading of a concentration. So you have this, let's go back. You have this superficial interrupted, then you have superficial uninterrupted, then you have concentrated. Now you have concentrated spreading. Okay, let's go to third stage, part 5. Now, this is called Samadhi. However, again, everything in the third stage is on the platform of the mind. So going back to 328.34, Srila Prabhupada says, when the mind forcibly is engaged upon the form of the Lord, this is called Nirbija Yoga or lifeless yoga, for the yogi does not automatically engage in the personal service of the Lord. Forcibly practice Abhyas Yoga, Sadhana Yoga, means there is some force. There is some attraction. Rupa Goswami says that the qualification for bhakti is taste. So there's some attraction even in the beginning. If there wasn't some attraction from day one, why would we do this? So there's definitely attraction. That attachment is growing. In fact, these stages of meditation are meant to increase our attachment. But there's still some force. Okay, it's Gayatri time, I've got to chant. It's time to do my puja. I got to do it. It's time to chant my japa. I have to do it. There's some concept of force. I mean, that concept of force may diminish as one goes through these stages, but there's still it's something I have to do. I remember speaking to one initiated devotee who told me he stopped chanting his 16 rounds because it said it became something else on my to-do list. Well, that meant that it wasn't much of an attachment, but even with an attachment, as long as we're in sadhana bhakti, it still becomes something that we are practicing, It's not entirely spontaneous. It starts becoming more and more spontaneous, but it's not entirely spontaneous. So this is samadhi. So we have, right, the superficial, interrupted, superficial, not interrupted, then concentrated, spread, and now samadhi, a total absorption. But it's on the platform of the mind. There's been some force involved. Now, we should also mention that this samadhi of the mind can exist while one is doing things in the world. It can exist while we're driving a car. We think about the yogis mentioned in the Bhagavatam who in samadhi couldn't notice anyone around them. Shamakarishi, who didn't hear Maharaj Pariksit, King Indrajuna, who didn't hear the sage approaching, and so forth. And we might think, well, if I'm in this state of samadhi, I have to be like in an underground cave. That's there. Some of our acharyas do that. But Srila Prabhupada talks about in Bhagavad Gita 12.2 purport, how one can be cooking for the Lord, one can be driving, and so forth. And one can still be in samadhi. So this is a samadhi, again, of affection. Just like one can be driving one's car and totally absorbed in love for one's child or love for one's husband or something like that, and still be a good driver. All right, now we're going to go to the fourth stage. So this fourth stage is also called samadhi or apanadasha. So it's interesting that the third stage, part 5, and the fourth stage are the same name, samadhi, but this is a very different kind of samadhi. This is the rays of the Ladini Shakti come and enter our heart and fully reveal our spiritual body. It's interesting, in that same lecture I heard this morning from 1975, Srila Prabhupada says that we are actually part of this Ladini Shakti. But Srila Prabhupada explains that when the attraction for Krishna is just coming from the jiva, it's not so attractive. Remember, this whole thing was to attract the Lord? But what happens is when the full Ladini Shakti enters our heart, enters like rays of sun, it illumines our heart. At this point, it's like having spiritual television. So there's a qualitative difference between the mental samadhi and the spiritual samadhi. So here, our mental samadhi, that lure we put on this hook of our mind, has attracted the fish of Krishna, who's now appeared within our consciousness. He's appeared within our consciousness as spiritual television. and started to reveal gradually, started to reveal the 11 aspects of our identity. Now, we've had some perhaps intuitive grasp of this previously, but now it starts to be really flowering and revealed. You know, sometimes as a child, you know, maybe when you're 6, you're like, I want to be a lawyer. That's what I want to be. But then it starts blossoming when you're quite a bit older than that. Right? And going back to 328:34 to the purport. In the beginning, the mind is employed in attracting the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but in the higher stages, there is no question of using the mind. Think about that. When one is constantly thinking of the Lord, that is called living yoga. So in the beginning, let's read this again. In the beginning, the mind is employed in attracting the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the higher stages, this is this 4th stage of meditation, there is no question of using the mind. When one is constantly thinking of the Lord, that is called living yoga. So at this point, this is not happening on the platform of the mind. It's revelation from the Lord, revelation from a higher sphere. And then the 5th stage, the last stage, the 5th stage, Samadhi dasa. So this is one gets one's inheritance. One clearly and perfectly understands our eternal relationship with Krishna. Radha and Krishna come personally, not just in the mind. So in this former stage, in this stage, we are living in the world, but internally we're engaging in a spiritual body in perfection. And now in this stage, we're living in the spiritual world, and if our body is still here, it's kind of, you know, we're just engaging on material body. So the focus is switched. So in the 4th stage, I'm living in the world, but internally absorbed in the spiritual world. In the 5th stage, I'm in the spiritual world, and I'm using the body in the material world. So this very nice description from Dhruva Maharaj. This is from Bhagavatam 492. The form of the Lord, which was brilliant like lightning, and in which Dhruva in his mature yogic process was fully absorbed in meditation, all of a sudden disappeared. Thus Dhruva was perturbed, and his meditation broke. But as soon as he opened his eyes, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally present, just as he'd been seeing the Lord in his heart. So this is the difference between the 4th and 5th stage. In the 4th stage, the spiritual televisions is going on in your heart. And in the 5th stage, there's Krishna right in front of you. You know, Srila Prabhupada was once talking to a reporter, and the reporter was saying, so, you know, how is it that you're receiving direction from Krishna? And Ramaswar started saying, well, you know, Krishna says this in the scriptures and this. And then Prabhupada says, no, directly. I am seeing Krishna directly at every moment. So let's look at a cooking analogy that I thought of, and I hope you'll find this helpful. So the 1st stage is hearing. Hearing. So this is like if you're going to make burfi. I don't know how many of you have ever made real milk burfi. But if you're going to make burfi, first thing you do is you take some milk and you put it in a pot. Yeah. So that's the stage of hearing. It's the beginning stage of meditation, like the stage of hearing. Then the stage of accepting. One's really accepting what one's heard. That's like you turn on the fire under the pot. You're starting to do something with that milk. Then the 3rd stage, Smarna Dasa, the stage of remembering, the milk is starting to boil. It's starting to get hot. And again, this has 5 subparts. So the first subpart is interrupted. So this is like you stir the milk, and then you wash the beans, you stir the milk, you cut the vegetables, you stir the milk, you answer your phone. Then we have the uninterrupted. So now you're stirring the milk without interruption. You're stirring that milk all the time. Then we have the concentrated. So you're stirring the milk all the time, and it's gotten thick. And in its thick state, it also expands. Goes out of the meditation time into your day. And now the milk is fully cooked. The 3rd stage, part 5, the mental samadhi, it's fully cooked. All right, fourth stage. This is spiritual samadhi, going from mental samadhi to spiritual samadhi. This is when the rays of Vajini Shakti enter the heart and create spiritual television. This is like you've got sugar in that milk. Let's see, the colors changed. And fifth stage, Burfi, when you see Krishna face to face. Okay, so I want to show you now some other charts that I put together. Okay, so these were put together. This first one, the meditation stages, was put together only and solely from, well, not only and solely, but primarily from Nectar of Instruction, page 76, 8. And here we can look at, and these things on the bottom I got from the devotee Srimati, who lives in Vrindavan. So Shravana Dasa is constant hearing, Varna Dasa acceptance, attached to hearing. Right? Mixed spontaneous, substantial faith would fail greed, immature knowledge, we mean realized knowledge, meditation unsystematic, tainted with mundane topics, imitative without greed, still inviting bhakti, can meditate on Lord Chaitanya. Then smaranavasta, which Prabhupada again called chanting in ecstasy, requires great submission and determination, reveals an intuitive, though not realized, of one's eternal relationship, and one can meditate then in a mentally conceived body, a mentally conceived body. In other words, if one has some intuitive grasp that I'm Krishna's friend, one can mentally imagine a form like that of Krishna's friend. Prabhupada uses the word imagine. All right, now let's look at the 5 sub-ones. So there's recollection, which is interrupted, unsystematic, no connection between one pastime and another, cultivating attachment for Krishna and eagerness for perfection. Second stage of second part of stage 3. Absorption uninterrupted, remember one event in a sequence, the whole day of pastimes. Third part of stage 3, which is also called meditation, or concentrated, mentally entering into the pastimes to do service. So at this point of this concentration, this is the third part of the third stage. One mentally enters into the pastimes to do service. Before that one is just observing Krishna's pastimes and qualities and form. Then constant remembrance is expanded and constant. Then spiritual trance or samadhi, but again, this is on the platform of the mind with the materially conditioned mind. And this does not turn into the eternal one. And one does not fully adopt the 11 aspects of identity, or one may have some realization of them. It attracts it, again, as Lord Kapila says, like a lure attracts a fish. Then the fourth stage of samadhi, apanadas, once fully developed, understands one's original constitutional position. Now again, this is gradual at this stage, but this is from the rays of the Vajini Shakti, identifying with the Vrajvasi, one Siddhadeya descending from the spiritual platform, all 11 aspects, along with Krishna and his associates. Spiritual television, live in the world while engaging spiritual body in perfection and sampati, clearly and perfectly understanding eternal relationship with Krishna. So there's a little difference, again, between what's going on in the heart and externally. Radha and Krishna come personally, not just in the mind. Live in the spiritual world and engage the material body to help conditioned souls. All right, let's look at it. I put together 3 different charts because I wasn't able to put everything in the same chart. So here I pulled a lot from Bhakti Vinod, and here if we look at Shravana Das, hearing from the lips of a true spiritual preceptor about the goal and means to attain it in a happy mood with a deep thirst. Wow. So that's the kind of hearing that we need to do to have that hearing be the first stage of meditation. Hearing from the lips of a true spiritual preceptor about the goal and means to attain it in a happy mood with a deep thirst. Okay, going on to Varna Das. With every delight, this is Bhakti Vinod, with every delight from the deepest recesses of one's heart, one welcomes surrendering to Sri Guru. Now here, Bhakti Vinod is putting some realization in Varna Das instead of Smarna Das. As I said, these are described differently in different places. There is a beginning form of realization of one's eternal identity with a general understanding of the Vraja personality one is following. So here Bhaktivinoda putting that in Varnadas and Smaranadas, chanting Harinam with joy in one's heart, then gradually adding mamata, possessive attachment. Next, adding loving intimacy based on firm faith and confidence in the Lord. Sounds to me like a recipe, right? So I'm chanting Harinam with joy in my heart. Then I'm gradually adding in the mamata, the possessive attachment, and then I'm adding some loving intimacy. I just did this really cool picture of someone in the kitchen. All right, now let's look at the 5 parts of this stage. So for the interrupted, we have short intermittent recollection. Meditation is easily broken by wandering thoughts and external distractions. Then dharana. Now dharana, dhyana, and samadhi are all also terms from Ashtanga yoga. Dharana means to hold. Govardhan dhari, to hold. So in this dharana, which is uninterrupted, is withdrawing the mind from all material objects and ordinarily is the key word here, engaging the mind on the Lord. One is purposely, again, there's some effort, withdrawing the mind from other thoughts and thinking about a specific subject related to Krishna, but in general terms. Third part of the third stage, dhyana, or meditation, thinking specifically about all aspects, the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord, applying the mind at length to contemplate particular forms, qualities, and pastimes of Sri Krishna. Okay, the fourth part of stage 3, thinking of the forms of the Lord without interruption, just like a flow of nectar, an effortless flow. So here we're moving away from the force. It's continuous, like the smooth flowing of nectar, but still everything in stage 3 is still with the mind. So it's effortless, but there's still some effort made to do something that's effortless. If we think of it like any kind of skill. So let's say you're learning dance and you're practicing. At a certain point of expertise, you're still practicing, but it's effortless. How to move your feet, how to move your hands, right? Or like yesterday, I helped my granddaughter with cooking and I was making these vegetable patties. I didn't need a recipe. I didn't need to know. It was effortless. That doesn't mean I didn't make an effort, but it was just a flow, how to do that, how to cook things, how to mash things. It was just like that. Or for me, doing public speaking, when I was 14 and I was first getting trained in public speaking, and then you have your little things, okay, I gotta say this, I gotta say that. And after a while, as anything you master, it becomes effortless. That doesn't mean that you're not making a deliberate effort. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. It's a little different than full spontaneity. Okay, then the 5th part of the 3rd stage, Samadhi, spiritual trance of the mind, constant manifestation of the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes being the only object of meditation. One is absorbed in Krishna for an extended period with nothing else remaining in the heart. Woo! So that is the 5th part of the 3rd stage. And now, boy, Krishna is attracted. Krishna is attracted. So then we move into the 4th stage, right? And here, a develop, realize understanding of the 11 aspects of one identity. One has a firm conviction of pursuing the Leela of Krishna and having entrance in the Leela completely absorbed in Krishna Rasa. And then Sampati is the same we had last time, where we're in the spiritual world, but we're functioning here to help others. And now let's look at this one. This is the 3rd version that I have. And again, this is from different, because Srila Prabhupada describes this differently in different places, Bhaktivinoda differently in different places, Jiva Goswami differently in different places. And there wasn't room on one sheet, I guess, if I got, an A3 but then we wouldn't be able to see it on the screen, to put everything in one place. So Shravana Das here is described as hearing philosophy, Krishna's descriptions, and to hear about the rasa one is attracted to. So here, right in Shravana Dasa, we're talking about some kind of innate attraction to a particular rasa. And, you know, I've kind of noticed that that may happen even for people who haven't yet had this awakening. I mean, just the other day, one devotee came up to me and said, you know, my favorite incarnation, my favorite personality to hear about is Balaram. And I thought, oh, it's interesting. and other devotees, I really like to hear about the cowherd boys. I really like to hear about Krishna's childhood pastime. So that may be there even before we have any idea who we are. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't hear about everything. People ask me, you know, when we have some particular taste, how should we hear about in general and our particular taste? And I say it's like a gulab jamun. You don't just eat gulab jamuns, right? You eat dal rice, chapati, sabji, and you also have a gulab jamun. Okay, so Varna Dasa, this is where there's real taste, freedom from offense, where raga awakens. So again, we have this raga awakening at Varna, although other places it says it awakens at Smarana. So, you know, we have to be very, very careful whenever we read one thing from an acharya or even one thing from one place from Srila Prabhupada, where it'll say, this happens here. And then, you know, if somebody's having some awakening at another stage, no, it can't because it happens here. But as Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas describe this awakening as happening at different stages, it means that for different people, it happens at different stages. Okay. Varna Dasa, taste, freedom from offense, raga awakening, eagerly and anxiously accepting one's own rasa. So here, this Varna, which means accepting, here is being described as, yes, I am a cowboy. Yes, I am following Nanda Maharaj. And Smarna is remembering the 11 sentiments, 11 aspects of one's identity, Vrajbasi service, remembering the sentiments of the Vrajbasis, desiring to practice those. And then here looking at Smarana, meditating on whatever spiritual topics come easily to mind. And here's a direct quote from Srila Prabhupada, conducting research into the worship of a particular form of the Lord. I love research. I've loved research since I was, I don't know, 15 or 16. And to read this, I was like, wow, that's so cool. One tries to remember the eightfold pastimes, but the mind wanders. And this general meditation. So part 2 of stage 3, one is purposely withdrawing the mind from other thoughts and thinking about a specific subject related to Krishna, but in general terms, steady remembrance of the eightfold pastimes in a general way. So this is general, steady meditation. Then jhana, making a focused attempt to meditate on specific form, pastime, etc., applying the mind at length to contemplate particular forms or qualities of Sri Krishna. Some of these quotes are from Prabhupada, some are from Bhakti. Note. One can meditate on all aspects minutely. So here we have detailed, deliberated meditation. Here's a switch from general to detailed. Anusmriti, spontaneously as a constant flow, concentrating one's mind continuously on the form of the Lord, minutely and specifically, detailed, flowing meditation. Samadhi, only the Lord exists in one's consciousness. One is absorbed in Krishna, again, the same thing, with nothing else in the heart. And now going to the spiritual Samadhi is knowing one's eternal relationship, an application of invoking the sentiments of the Vrajvasis. So this is not just remembering them, but they're being invoked. And it was interesting here, material identifications are insignificant. So, you know, I'm so-and-so's daughter, I'm so-and-so's wife, I'm so-and-so's mother. By the way, anyone listening to this recording later, this is a Vaishnavi Sangha, that's why I'm just talking in those terms. Those things become insignificant. I still remember, I mean, there's this one book, Simple for the Simple, about a devotee in her last days and how she attained pure devotional service. And at one point she was asked, do you have a husband? And she said, no, I'm too young to have a husband, because she was meditating on her eternal form. And when she was asked again, she was like, oh, yeah, I have this husband in this world. So one knows I have this person as my husband, my father, my mother, my children, but that's not my main identity. Now, interesting here, this fourth stage of meditation, spiritual samadhi, the perception of transcendence is not continuous and perfect. And it's only in Sampati, Dasha, Vastu Siddhi. So Apana Dasha is called Swarup Siddhi, and Sampati Dasa is called Vastu Siddhi. Here we see Krishna face to face. Here we become steady in our original identity, and our relationship with this material world is totally severed. Does that mean we can't be a good wife and a good mother? We can be all those things. We have no identity with it. We are only identifying as a soul. So we have about 25 minutes that we can have for questions. And you can write questions in the chat, or however the organizers want to.
Yes, the ladies can write in the chats, and we have one lady checking the Facebook page, and then we'll just take it from there. But just to give the ladies some time to think about what they want to ask. Thank you very much for the talk. I really appreciated the points about. You said quite in the beginning, these are not mechanical stages, but stages of attachment. And sometimes I have the feeling that I don't know if it's just the time that we're living in. We have quite a mechanical approach to many things. We approach things from our mind a lot of the times, and not from our heart. And it's quite interesting to think about that it's, and also I was thinking about while you were speaking that sometimes I know for myself, I sometimes look at people who are already expert in something, and then I think, but why can't I be like that? You see the results of all their efforts, but you don't see the results behind the efforts. And sometimes we just don't know how long it takes to get there. And if we don't know that these are the stages, we can lose patience or lose hope that we won't. And it's not just for meditation, but it's for many things in life. Yeah,
Thank you. And keep in mind that through stage 3 of meditation, one is using the mind, but the mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. So I think rather than perhaps saying mind and heart, we could say not just the thinking aspects of the mind, but also the feeling aspects of it, the willing aspects of it. But thank you. That was a lovely comment. You really added substantially. Thank you. Such a pleasure. So any of you else who have any questions or comments, and anyone else who has comments also, that's
yeah, ladies, you don't have to be shy. That's why we are here to discuss these things. I'm just, if not, then yeah, it doesn't seem that there are questions. But
now, are there no questions because I gave everything so clearly that there's nothing more to understand? Or are there no questions because I gave such a lousy lecture that nobody understands it at all and they can't even think of a question? It's kind of
so there's one question.
Okay.
Says, how are these progressive stages related to stages of advancement in bhakti from Shraddha to Prema?
That's a very good question. We are taking a big risk whenever we try to relate one series of progressive stages in bhakti to another series of progressive stages. And the analogy that I can give is that of a child becoming an adult. So when a child becomes an adult, there's a certain point at which physiologically a person is an adult. right? I saw something the other day on social media where it was saying that, you know, there's no such thing as a young woman. They're either a child or a woman. And I thought, that's not really true. You know, so there's a point where physiologically you become an adult, but maybe emotionally you're still a child, or maybe intellectually you're an adult and physiologically you still have some growing up to do. There's, you know, physical, social, intellectual, emotional, and there's all different ways that you could talk about how one matures from a child to an adult. You know, we make a cutoff point. We can say, okay, at 18, you're a legal adult. But frankly, there are many people who are fully adults at 15 or 16, and there are some people at 85 still act like little children. So it, you know, there's a certain point, hopefully, where holistically you're an adult. You know, you're an adult with everything. But it happens all the time that somebody matures more in one way than in another way. And so if you wanted to make some sort of one-to-one correspondence between physiological development, emotional development, intellectual development, social development, and put it all together, you're not going to be able to do that. It's not that a person at a particular emotional stage is also going to be at a particular physiological stage. So the Shraddha to Prema is a very holistic model. It's really looking at a broad perspective. And so in one sense, you could say it encompasses the meditation model and the chanting model and the relationship model and the faith model. You could say they all fit within it. But in another sense, it's not completely holistic. So there's certain things that aren't being gone into in depth. And therefore, I prefer personally not to try to equate them, but to say, well, you know, you can have a rough equating that, like, all right, bhava and prema could correspond to stages 4 and 5 of meditation. That's certainly possible. But because I haven't seen that kind of equivalence, I'm still very, very hesitant to say, well, it's like that, because it may not be like that. I mean, I also think in Madhurya Kanambani, how Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that nishta, or steadiness, is achieved in mind, body, and words. And he says, generally, it's achieved first in the body, then in the words, and then in the mind. So first one's steady in one's practice of Krishna consciousness physically, then one's steady verbally and physically, and then one is steady physically, verbally, and mentally. But he says it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes one may be steady mentally before one's steady physically. Think about what that means practically. That people we look at that may not appear to be steady physically may already be steady mentally. And then Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur talks about steadiness and good qualities. And he says, you can have steadiness and good qualities without being steady in bhakti. And you can be steady in bhakti without being steady in good qualities. Now, at a certain point, you're holistically mature in everything. But so I really would hesitate. I'm so, so glad you brought that up. Okay, 11 aspects of identity. If I'm going to get all of them, I'm going to have to pull up another file because I don't want to mess this up. And no, I didn't mention them. You didn't miss anything. I don't know if that's the Somya Radhika that I know, but if it is, Hare Krishna. Nice to see you here. Hope someday we'll meet in person again. So if I find... Let's see if I can find this. I don't seem to be able to find it here, and I will look it up here for you. And I'm still 11 aspects. Oh, here I'm getting to I ended up in the place in Harinam Chintamani about the stages of meditation. And it's in Jaiva Dharma. And it's in, but it's not just like popping up for me. So, but it's there. Okay, here we go. And this is from Harinam Chintamani, chapter 15, where Bhaktivinoda said these items are perfected through 5 stages, which again, he's talking about the 5 stages of meditation. So, oops, 1 second. Let me copy that with Unicode. See, I don't get weird diacritics. There we go. One's relationship. So this means the general rasa, my Krishna's friend, my Krishna's lover, my Krishna's like a mother, like a father. How old am I? This is my eternal body. Am I 11? Am I 15? What is my name? Bodily color. And there's not just shades of melanin. You know, there's all different colors. Membership in a particular group. Dress. Order, what's my general order that I'm being given by my superiors? Where do I live? My highest expectation and service, and the protecting gopi is given here, but it could be a protecting, oh, thank you, Rukmini. It could be a protecting cowherd boy or protecting someone else. Thank you. Look at that. Beautiful. Thank you, Rukmini. Always nice to have you here. Such a pleasure. Okay, now we have from, Rangadevi. Hare Krishna. I saw you in your video. Again, it'd be so nice to see you again in person sometime. And can you clarify again the difference between material and spiritual samadhi? And the last 2 parts of spiritual samadhi, Krishna TV and stage 5. Thank you. Okay, so mental and spiritual samadhi. Mental samadhi is to some extent mechanical. It's a total absorption of the material mind, which is a machine. So the soul is totally absorbing the material mind. I wonder if we could give some sort of analogy for that. I have to really meditate on what would be a good analogy for that. I'm using the machine. I'm using I'm still identifying to a large extent with this body and this mind. And I'm still using the mind to be fully absorbed in Krishna. So my mind is just full. That machine in my mind is just full. And I've even mentally entered the pastimes in a materially conceived body. So maybe I'm getting some hint about these 11 aspects of my identity. I'm getting some hints, some revelations. And with those hints and revelations, I'm imagining. Maybe what we could give an analogy to. Okay, suppose you're at a distance from somebody that you care about and you want to be with. And you're not able to communicate with them for some reason. You can't communicate with them directly. So you're mentally imagining being with them. You're imagining what you're going to do, what you're going to say, what's happening. And you're imagining based totally on Shastra. You're not just like making it up, you know. So one is, Prabhupada uses the word imagine, and you're fully absorbed in this. When I had a job for a while in the government school, the woman who worked in the same office, she would play Christian songs, and one of them was called I Can Only Imagine. And it was about, you know, what will I do when Jesus comes? When I see Jesus, what will I do? Will I fall to my knees? Will I get up and dance? Will I say prayers, or will I be stunned into silence? And And the singer was imagining, what will I do when Jesus comes? And his imagination was based on things in the Bible. Again, it wasn't just concocted. Now then, spiritual samadhi, think of the person calls you, but maybe they call you on Zoom, they call you on Skype, they're not in the room with you. But the person actually calls you and you're actually having an interaction with that person. It's not just your own thinking. So why have they called you? Well, you're always thinking about them. And maybe you even send them a message. I'm always thinking about you. I'm always absorbed in you. So they call you. They come to see you, but in your heart. And then the last stage, you're actually seeing them face to face. You know, like, so here I'm staying right next door to a temple and they broadcast the classes. So one time, one of my former Gurukul students was giving class. So I wasn't able to get there in time. And so I was listening and watching on my phone, right? So I have my phone and I'm watching on my phone and I'm walking over to the temple, watching and listening on my phone. And as I start to enter the temple room, I turn off my phone and I see you're face to face. So that's something like the difference between the fourth and the fifth stage. In the fourth stage, it's Krishna, it's there, it's not the mind. He's appeared. His associates have appeared. They've appeared in our consciousness. And I fully see myself. And all these 11 aspects, I really see them. I'm experiencing them. But the fifth stage, I'm actually there. Krishna's in front of me. The associates are in front of me. Is that, Rangi Devi, is that okay? Or is that more?
She says yes.
Okay. So somewhat overwhelming, Deepa says, somewhat overwhelming. It's a lot of stuff because these stages are described differently in different places. If it was always exactly the same description, it wouldn't be quite as overwhelming. I think that for me, the main benefit of studying these stages is trying to understand in a general way, okay, well, where am I? Where am I? And what do I need to do to get to the next level? So if I'm hearing, but I'm not hearing with some thirst and some joy, then let me start hearing with some thirst and some joy. Let me bring the feeling and desire part of myself into my hearing. If I'm already hearing with some thirst and some joy, then what I want to concentrate on is accepting that. Accepting that I'm Krishna's servant, really making what I'm hearing, what I'm reading a part of me. And if I've done that, then what I really want to focus on is meditating on that, what I've heard. Meditating and finding some specific pastimes or forms that I want to meditate on. Now, I might do that in my japa, I'm really focused on particular leelas or particular forms. I may do that while I'm dressing the deities. I may do that as I'm, going about my day. And it's going to be interrupted and it's going to be mixed with mundane topics. And maybe at first I'm just able to meditate on Krishna for a minute or two. And then, okay, it's all right. And then, maybe I can meditate for 5 minutes a week later. And maybe another week later, it'll be 7 minutes. And then it jumps back down to 3. And, and I start working on it being more uninterrupted. That at least at the time I sit to meditate, at least during my japa, at least during my Gayatri, at least that I can stay more and more and more uninterrupted. And then from there, I want to start going to making it deep. Okay, how can I make this? I'm able to sit and think about Krishna for 15 minutes without interruption. Cool. How can I make that deeper? How can I get into the real emotions and the real essence of what I'm thinking about? I was talking with some devotees who were going through a hard time with some other devotees. And we thought about some pastime. They were thinking about how the Pandavas were sent into exile for 13 years. And I said, which Pandava would you like to focus on? And he said, Nakul. I said, all right, let's go deep into how's Nakul thinking? How's Nakul feeling? What kind of experience is Nakul having? You know, I was just reading the Uddhava Sandesh by Rupa Goswami and how Krishna was talking to Uddhava about, Kamasiji, you may want to link the PDF charts again because anyone who joined late won't be able to go back. They can't go back in the chat and see links posted before they joined. So I'm reading in the Uddhava Sandesh and how Krishna is saying to Uddhava, because the gopis love me so much, when I'm Krishna, when I'm in Mathura, I'm so much thinking about the gopis that I can't even do anything. So, you know, one can read that and go, oh wow, Krishna really loves those gopis in Vrindavan when he's in Mathura. And then one can go deep in saying, okay, here's God. He can experience anything he wants, any pleasure he wants, anything he wants. So if he's in this situation, it's because he wants to be in this situation. You know, if I'm separated from a long time from someone I really love, and I have no way to communicate except by sending written messages, you know, that's hard. And there he is in that place, overwhelmed by this love. And if you start going deep, how does Krishna feel? What's this happiness he's feeling in this situation? So this is a concentrated meditation where one is not just uninterrupted, maybe for 10, 15 minutes or half an hour or 5 minutes, or however long one can be uninterrupted, but to really go deep into that meditation. And then, okay, what's the next step? The next step is to take it and expand it. Be able to have that kind of deep meditation in all the different circumstances in life. Not just when one's reading or just when one's turning job, but to have it flow into one's life. And then what's the next step? The next step from there is to have nothing else but that in the heart. That doesn't mean one doesn't do other things. Like Bhishma said, he spoke on thousands of battlefields. He spoke on thousands of subjects with thousands of meanings and fought on thousands of battlefields with thousands of men. But still only Krishna was in his heart. And then the fourth and fifth stages is not really much you can do to go from one to the other. That's completely under the control of Ladi and Shakti. But one can certainly be responsive to those stages and desire them and be eager. Okay, you said there's some other questions on Facebook.
There's one question that was posted. It's just a reference questions. In meditation stages, document from Nectar of Instruction, page 76, it says that we mentally enter into the pastimes to do service on the stages of concentrating meditation. Where does that explanation come from? Because the person, I don't know who pasted this.
One of the problems I have with these charts is I didn't have room in the charts to reference each specific thing. That's just a limitation, and I don't remember all of them. What I probably should do is I should go back, and who knows when I'll do this, but I should probably go back to each when I have time, right? So I should go back. There's a few of you on this class that have some idea of what I do during the day. So I should probably go back at some point to all these original sources and just list all, have the original sources just as a full list. But it is in Harinam Chintamani, it is in Jaiva Dharma, it's in Manashiksha, there's one of the Sandarbhas of Jiva, I can't remember where. Right off the top of my head, NOI 8, and it's also found throughout Srila Prabhupada's books. If you do a search on the database for things like Dharana and Dhyana, you'll find it. You'll find these different references. So, you know, pick some of the Sanskrit words for these different stages and do a search and you'll find them. And hey, if any of you want to find all of them and categorize them, for me with all the citations and then send it to me, wow, I would be thrilled. Yes, I should have done that in the first place, but I didn't. I just didn't. Sorry. As I said, I don't have room in those charts. But yeah, if any of you want to do that, it would be a fun meditation. And I think on that note, as it is now been an hour and a half, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to meditate on meditation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Jai. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for having us, for making space in your day. I mean, yeah, I don't know how you do it, but we're very thankful to you. And ladies, hopefully we can continue this, and please join us again in the future. Do you already have plans to give more classes here, Prabhu, or somewhere?
I don't know. I don't remember I write down my schedule so I don't have to remember it.
Oh, no.
So it's online, and thank you, Ranga Devi. It's online, so you can check out my schedule online. And of course, if the Sadhvi Sangha asks me again, hopefully they'll ask me at a time when I can say
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll
is a
post
class
it
like
as.
this also available for men is the question. I'm sure that Hare Krishna Sasaki, it's very nice to see you as well. Hare Krishna, it's such a pleasure. I'm sure that men can watch the recordings, and they'll just have to tolerate that I'm just talking about husbands and not wives.
We'll post this. We'll post this class. I mean, it's a live stream on Facebook, but we'll also post it on YouTube, and that will be available for.
And I have taught this class in a variety of formats where we do let the men in.
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay, thank you again.
Thank you very much, ladies. We'll see you next time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.